And to me, good leadership, it's like that. It's providing that environment to the good group of people that you lead. All of those things can help you be more self-aware. And I think just picking the one that resonates most with you and then getting to know yourself with the help of that tool can be super valuable. And you knew in your body, in your essence, like this feels right. To me, that's your spirit telling you this is right for you. And to connect with that inner knowing is to remove the training that we've received as socialized creatures to think and to be able to say, maybe my parents expected me to be a lawyer, but actually I want to be a dancer.
Welcome, I'm your host Stefano, and this is When Leaders Talk, a podcast about leadership and most importantly about leaders. Leaders that they need to know themselves very well to be able to lead in an effective way. This is something we talk a lot about with Mariana Valdez, the guest of this episode. Mariana is a wellness and life coach, and also she has worked for more than a decade in Google, so she knows very well the corporate world and how to lead a team in a big organization like Google. Going back to self-awareness, that's where Mariana and I really spent a long time trying to understand how people can really get to know themselves better. And also, what does it mean having self-awareness? What are the dimensions of self-awareness? And what I really appreciate of the conversation with Mariana is that we look at it in a very holistic way. So being a self-awareness is understanding well our body and our mind, of course, our emotions, but also the spiritual dimension of it. I don't want to spoil anything, so I will leave this topic to the rest of the episode, to Mariana. Also, we talk about vision and how to, once again, understand what is our vision in our life. So, before I leave the floor to Mariana, let me remind you to subscribe to this podcast on any platform you're using right now, and follow me on social media, especially LinkedIn, and of course, visit masteryourc.com to have more information about leadership. There is a blog, and about coaching. That's what I do. Well, with no further ado, Mariana Valdez. So, Mariana, what is your definition of good leadership? What is a good leader for you?
Can I give you an analogy instead of a definition?
Oh, yeah. Nice. I love that.
Because I think that definitions can be boring sometimes. Like the dictionary says, blah, blah, blah. But how I see good leadership is as good soil. If you go outside for a walk in your neighborhood, or if you go to a farm and you see flowers and plants and fruit trees and wheat and corn growing, and if they're thriving, if they're doing really well, they can only grow to their potential because the soil in which they grow, it's rich with nutrients, with water, with the right environment that plant needs. And to me, good leadership, it's like that. It's providing that environment to the good group of people that you lead. And it's invisible work, or it should be invisible work. We shouldn't go outside and say, oh, this soil looks amazing. We look at the plants, we look at the final work. And the work behind that or underground, it's almost invisible. And good leadership should be like that. It should be about the people. It should be about the work they can do under that vision of that leader or under that environment that person provided for them so that they could grow to their highest potential.
Nice analogy. I like the idea of people flourishing, literally, as you said.
Yes, exactly.
So, but then staying with this analogy, what are the nutrients, the water, the minerals you were mentioning? What is that the leader needs to become this fertile soil?
Yeah. And it can be so many things. And if you grab a book on leadership, and I'm sure, I mean, you interview people on this, and you have read so many books about leadership, and there's so many things that different people recommend, and that they have their own strategy. But I feel like there are some things that apply to everybody, no matter what, no matter the company, no matter the movement. Sometimes it's not a company, no matter the community. And those to me are things like self-awareness. That would
Mhm.
be actually my number one. And I know that's something I've heard you talk a lot about too. So you might
Yeah.
agree with me on that one.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
and having a very clear vision. I feel like all good leaders, and I actually wouldn't know which one to put as number one, because I feel like some people with a clear vision, even if they're not self-aware, they might not be the best leader in some ways, but they take people forward because they inspire them. Um, and that's that, like without those two things, having any of the other people skills and knowing how to prioritize and time management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, wouldn't be important if you don't have a clear vision to take people to, and if you're not self-aware.
I agree with you. As you mentioned, self-awareness is something that I talk about a lot. We
Mm,
within the podcast and everyone else, coaching is all about creating self-awareness because I am convinced that for me, well, like, self-awareness is really the starting point. Whatever you want to do, you need to have an idea of what you are, what you want, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, also because that's the area of improvement. We want to be a better leader. So if you know that I don't have good communication skills, maybe that's something I want to invest my time on and my resources on it. What is self-awareness? What is in this definition? How would you structure self-awareness? What I gave some indication, but I know it's
yeah.
we can go much deeper than that, right?
Oh, we could talk all day about this.
Yeah,
And different people might say different things, and I think they're all very valid. To me, it's knowing, and you mentioned your strengths, knowing who you are, knowing your strengths, knowing what you're not good at, and knowing why you react the way you react. So I'm a big fan. There's so many tools to get to know yourself, right? I'm a big fan of the Enneagram.
right. So you
And
basically taken away my next question. It was like, oh, what do you need for
yeah,
yourself?
I can read your mind. I know where you're going. No, I'm a big fan of the Enneagram, and but I've done so many insights and disc and strengths finder and therapy, and I mean writing on a diary, like all of those things can help you be more self-aware. And I
Hmm.
think just picking the one that resonates most with you, and then getting to know yourself with the help of that tool, can be super valuable. And with something like the Enneagram, you get to learn not only what your strengths and your weak spots are, but also how you see the world compared to how other people see the world. And you learn about those other points of view. And if you are in a position of leadership, that is just so important, because without that information, we all tend to think that we see the world, we have a view of the world the same way that everybody else does. And that's very wrong, as you know. So having that opportunity to realize, like, this is how others perceive me. They might, like, I put in as an example, there's one of the numbers in the Enneagram. And for those of you that are listening or watching that don't know about the Enneagram, this is a system of 9 different personality types, and they're all connected. It's beautiful because it's not only about like, oh, you're a 1, you're a 2. Actually, we all have a little bit of all of them. But we tend to gravitate, or we tend to behave in a way that it mostly describes one of the types, like one of the archetypes. And as an example, one of the types, which is it's often called the controller, number 8. These are people who are often
That's me, actually.
perceived. That's you. These are people who are often perceived, especially when they're in a position of leadership, like they're a manager and they're an 8, as aggressive and too direct, and sometimes even intimidating. And they don't try to be any of those things. They're just being who they are. They just have this powerful presence wherever they go. So they might think that they're being the friendliest leaders to the group of people they're leading, and they're being perceived as aggressive by many. So having that awareness, having that recognition can be game-changing. So to me, that's to answer your question, that to me is awareness, having the knowledge of how you act, how you react to others, and to take it a step further, how others perceive you and how others perceive the world.
Okay, well, first of all, let me say that I had the pleasure and the honor of having Beatrice Chestnut as a guest here in the podcast. And
Yes.
she's talking about Enneagram. She's one of the greatest expert on Enneagram. She wrote at least 3, 4 books on it, and there are a lot of information on those books, but in a very simple way. So it's very manageable if you
Yeah.
want. And I really suggest for those who don't know what the Enneagram is to buy one of their books, because it's very well written. So going back to you, since we're talking about self-awareness,
Can I say
from what?
something there? Sorry
Sure,
to
of course,
interrupt you,
of
but
course.
since you're talking about Beatrice, I'm a big fan of her work, and I actually listened to your podcast interview with her, which was really good, and I also highly recommend it. She has a book called The 9 Types of Leadership. And going back to one of your first questions, which was, what are those ingredients? There are no specific ingredients, right? Like besides those like big things that are important in general. In the book that Beatrice wrote about that, she talks about how each of the 9 personality types can lead beautifully in a completely different way, because their strengths are so different. They can be more quiet, more reserved, more research oriented, or more outspoken, or more people oriented. And they can all do a wonderful job as leaders in very different ways. But the key is knowing what those strengths are for you. And then when also, if you're more quiet and you need to speak up, like either learning those skills or finding somebody that can help you with that part. So yes, highly recommend that book. Beatrice is great.
A book that I have is in my bookshelf. Do you think, let's say on the Enneagram a little bit, I was going to change it since you mentioned it again. So do you think that, taking every type, there is an environment that fits them better? I don't know. For example, I know that you are a type 3, an achiever. Do you think,
You
for
don't think
example, type
everybody
3s?
knows, Stefano? That was my secret.
Okay, I'm
I'm
sorry.
kidding. I don't care. I'm a type 3, social 3, for those that know a little bit more.
So do you think that those like type 3 might be better as an entrepreneur? Type A like me might be better as I was in a military environment. Do you think there are in kind of organization where we can thrive and we can do better as leaders depending on the type we are?
That's a great question. And my sense has always been yes, based on stereotypes. Yes, from the outside. So if you only look at the stereotypes, like, oh, the number 3, it's like all about achieving goals and like corporate. So definitely the corporate world would be the best place for somebody who's a 3. Or 4 is more artistic oriented, so maybe not great for corporate. Those are the stereotypes. the truth is that once you get to know people in companies and get to know their types, they can actually thrive in, I think, based on my experience and the books that I've read and the people that I've worked with and knowing their types and working with teams and their Enneagram types, they can thrive in any role as long as it aligns with them. Does that make
I like that.
sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. It actually also gives some kind of, if you want, a sense of adaptability. So you don't need to be a three to be good in the corporate world. You can be a one, a two, or eight, a seven, anything. The thing is that you need to understand where you are, who you are, and what kind of skills you need to hone to achieve whatever is success for you. Right? Each of us has a different definition of success. So it's depending on what you want in your life. And staying there.
Exactly.
And staying there. So from 1 to 10, yeah, if you have to grade your self-awareness, where are you at now?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it would change depending on the day that you asked me. Um, I would say I'm at a 5.
Oh wow.
I still have a long way to go. And the more that I learn about myself, I can tell you, like, I'm a type 3, I'm a this subtype, and this is what bothers me, and are my childhood trauma that I've worked on, and these are the things that trigger me. So those are things that people would maybe put me at a higher number, like, oh, but you seem to know a lot about yourself. But I'm still discovering a lot about myself. And in the work that I'm doing, I have this model that I take people through, which is about learning, like getting to know your mind. And that's all that we've been talking about, like all of the mindset and our Enneagram type and our strengths, etc. And also getting to know your spirit. And that's the part that I think I'm still probably only in the 2 to 3 range. And also getting to know your body and honoring your body. So when I look at my own awareness with that combination, I'm still learning a lot.
What's the spirit? What is this dimension that we have? And
Yeah.
I know it's easy to recognize the body. It's easy to see the mind. But what about the spirit? What is it? How does it contribute to what we are?
Yeah. So when you, like, the easiest way that I could put it, and it is nothing to do with religion, by the way, is if you can think of a time where you were so happy and you were so, like, a moment, you accomplished something or you met somebody and you knew in your body, in your essence, like, this feels right. To me, that's your spirit telling you this is right for you. And then on the other hand, when you are on the fence about something and you don't know if, like, this job it's still good for you, or if this person it's still good for you in this relationship, and it feels like what a lot of people would call gut feeling, or that sense of a higher presence that knows and it's trying to, like, communicate with you, like, hey, this is the right path or the right person. Again, to me, that's the spirit. And I mean, I know you're certified with coactive, and in coactive training and in coactive coaching, we have this concept of the inner leader, right? That inner presence that knows, that it's all knowing, wise, and that just has the knowledge of what is right for you and best for you. And it's not something that we can think about. That's why it's not part of the mind. It's a knowing. So to me, that's the spirit. And I do tend to lean more towards the spiritual side with all of these too. So we can go deeper on that if you want, or we can leave it
Oh
at
yeah,
that.
absolutely. That's what I was gonna ask you. Okay, if you want to discover this side of who you are, if a person like me, anyone listening, wants to discover more about their spirit, well, this that is not surely the enneagram.
Yeah.
It's not
No.
surely probably the person that know them the most. So how can they find out more? How can they
Yeah.
um, increase the self-awareness on this particular dimension?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And it's not a question that I have the answer to. I can tell you what works for me.
Yeah.
And it's trying different things and going deeper with whatever resonates with you. Some people I've seen get to know their spirits more through religion, and that it's perfectly great for those of them that they have found whatever religion they believe in, that they can believe in something higher than themselves. I grew up Catholic, and I had not such a great experience with the church, in particular in Mexico, where I grew up. So I got a little bit away from that. So my approach tends to be more on the non-religious side of connecting with that inner wisdom, connecting with that knowledge that we all have. And that's a place that at least I've been able to go through to connect with when I meditate, or when I practice breath work, when I do breath work sessions, and I feel like, oh my God, like I'm connected with this higher sense of energy and life. Or a lot of people who do mushrooms, like that's what they would define as kind of like we're all one, right? Like that's that same sense that you can get through in other ways. There's a few people that I would recommend for anybody who's interested in like getting started through a non-religious path. Marta Beck, she's like a famous coach, and she has a lot of really beautiful books. And one that I love, I have it here in the back. It's called The Way of Integrity. And in that book, she talks about her own journey, and she connects it with the book, oh my God, I forgot the where Dante goes through the Inferno.
Oh, yeah, Divina Commedia, sure.
What's the yes, the Divine Comedy.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry. I say in Italian.
And
It's
yeah, yeah. Well, he was Italian, and I was thinking La Divina Commedia in Spanish. And she talks a lot about that, because
mm.
for her, like it was a journey of in her book and in her teachings, she calls it we are all socialized. You are socialized wherever you grew up. You grew up in Italy, I grew up in Mexico. We are socialized by our parents, by our cultures, by the time that we in history where we grew up. Like this is expected of men or for women. And to connect with that inner knowing is to remove the training that we've received as socialized creatures to think and to be able to say, maybe my parents expected me to be a lawyer, but actually I want to be a dancer. Or maybe I'm in this great position of leadership and I am thriving and making so much money and everybody's looking out for me, but I just want to quit and start a farm by the river and have chickens. And this is what my inner knowing is telling me I have to do. So it's like, in order to get there, you need to be able to get to that place somehow and remove the social training that we've received, which is the hardest part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and some people have been able in their story to really disconnect, to find their own strength without training, and discover what they're really meant to be. And in a
Yeah,
way, what you're saying seems like the spirit is connected to your life purpose. So
exactly.
it resonates the moment you do something that really fulfills you, and you are there and you feel it, and that's when you have this guts feelings, and this all
Yeah.
those vibration, if you want. And as you mentioned, it's not just a religious, so if you want, paradigm. Actually, in no all different religions they call it in a different way, and even atheists they call it they have a name for it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of, and there is a beautiful book that I read I would recommend. It's called The Soul's Code, and it's all about
Mm,
this. It's all about stories and of people who've been able to really discover their life purpose despite their parents, despite their friends, despite their teachers, because
yeah.
everyone around us, they contribute in a way, and I know it's harsh to say, but they put us on a track that might be not ours. They think they're doing a favor to us, they're helping us, but maybe they're not, right? And so I recently had a conversation with a young adult, and he told me, well, I feel I need to have a degree at university because
Mm,
this is what other people are expecting me to have, right? To achieve. In reality, I want to do something else. There is something inside of me that is pushing me towards something else. I think those are strong testimonials of if once we are able to connect with this inner self, the inner leader, this life purpose, the soul, you can call it in so many ways, then you really find the energy, find the motivation, find the courage, find everything you need to get in that direction. And it's your unique direction, is your path.
yes. Yeah, you said it beautifully, Stefano. And something that I believe is that we all have that inner compass. And you said it like we know, like it feels good when we are doing something that we're supposed to be doing, that it's aligned to our values, to what we are like deeply connected to. It feels like our purpose and it gives us so much energy and we get excited. And the great thing about it too is that if you are a leader and you are connected with that part, with your inner leader, with your spirit, with your soul's purpose, that doesn't stay with you. People perceive that. Somebody who's really connected with that, it's magnetic.
It
It's
is.
attract like you just want to be near them, work for them, but like believe what they believe because they you can see they believe in that. As opposed to somebody who might have all the skills to be a great leader, but it's not aligned with that part of themselves, doesn't have that. And again, we can perceive that in others. So
It's a
going
sweet,
back to the team of leadership, like that would be very,
yeah.
very important.
It's a sweet point. It's a sweet interconnection between passion, between talent, and as the Japanese would say with ikigai, also would be your
Mm,
mission. No, it's something. It's very hard to find. Is that it's easy to say, we can put it philosophical words in our mouth, but it's freaking hard. And if someone like you who spends a decent amount of time trying to understand who you are, what you want to be, consider yourself justified, that means that normally a person, people like me who probably doesn't meditate as I should, is probably 3, 2, or even less. Do you actually think there is someone who is able to reach the 10, like a full, total self-awareness?
not humans.
Okay.
I think um maybe somebody who, and I don't know if they can truly be enlightened, but I mean it's maybe some monk in India meditating on top of a mountain somewhere who has reached that level of not even recognizing themselves with their ego, maybe. But for those of us normal humans living a normal life, I don't think so. There's there's always something to learn. That's just part of the human experience. And that we also have so many blind spots. Like how could we know it all? Like there's things that people perceive about us that we don't even see. Have you heard about the Johari window?
No.
No, so it's this quadrant of things I know about myself and then things others know about myself. So you have four pieces. What I know about myself that others know about myself, like these are things that my name is Mariana and that I'm an extrovert, like everybody knows that knows me. Then you have things others know about myself that I don't know about myself. So these are things about how I react when I'm upset, maybe, or the funny quirks that I might have that I don't even notice, but others notice. Then things that I know about myself that others don't know about myself. So maybe my secrets that I wouldn't want you to know, or my more private things that I don't want to share with the world. And then lastly, things that I don't know about myself and others don't know about myself. So these are things that I haven't discovered yet. And maybe I won't ever discover. Maybe these are talents that if I'm not exploring, I will never find out that I was meant to be this great guitar player or singer. I know that I'm not supposed to be a singer, but maybe some people have a great voice and they haven't discovered it. So there's a lot that I don't think one person could discover it all in a lifetime.
Nice. Well, thank you for this. I didn't know about it. Harari window, you say.
Johari window, I think that's what it's
Johari.
called.
Johari. Okay.
Yeah.
Johari. I'm gonna write it down. Okay. And okay, let's go back to what you said at the beginning about the leader, the self-awareness, and then the vision. That is the second main component, if you want, of a leader. First of all, let me ask you, what is your vision? What is that you want to achieve in your life or in the next 5 years?
That's a big question.
I know. That's what we ask here.
Yeah. And my thing, and this is why I became a coach, because I know, like, I believe we all want to have a positive impact in the world in one way or another. And it can be
And
in very
positive,
different ways.
right? Positive is very subjective, and
Some people don't like, and we all think we're doing the best, which might be different definitions for a lot. But anyway, and I've always gravitated to wanting to help others reach their full potential or reach their purpose. So for me right now, with the work that I'm doing and that I'm developing, my vision is to help or to take others to a place where they can connect with that part of themselves and live their best life. And if I can do that with one person, then I'm happy. But my goal is to do it with more than one.
at least two.
At least two, one and a half.
That's a beautiful vision, and I guess something many coaches like I do, we share at least in some principles in a general way. Then we might kind of design our path in a different way. That's all point. But still, the vision is to support, help other people. And as we did for self-awareness, what are the tools that you use or you recommend for someone who thinks that they have not still a clear idea of what they want to achieve in their next 5 years, 10 years? What can they do to
Would
get
it be
there?
more to what are the tools for them to define their goals or to learn more about themselves or to do both?
No, to define their long-term goal, their vision.
Yeah.
I think that vision is always something that you will never get really there, but you will get as close as you can, right? It's something that will always drive your actions in the future. Is pretty much close to your life purpose, but it's not the same thing. It can be aligned, can be not. But is kind of the carrot they would put in front of a stick to have the horse run faster.
Um, Fastest way to get there is to work with you or with me as coaches or with any other coach,
I like it.
honestly, like
Yeah.
having that support from somebody who's helping you, guide you through that work. It's great. But that's not the only way, definitely. And for some other people, like some books, and I recommend some that talk about designing your life and getting clear on your purpose. I've used many books in many different stages of my life. I'm a really big fan of workshops too, and I feel like they sometimes can be like taking a Red Bull, like you leave all pumped up, like, yes, I'm going to do all of these things. And then the energy wears off. But if you have that support to continue with that work, workshops can be great. But if you're only going to do one thing, for people that are like, yeah, that's all that sounds great, but I'm not going to start working with somebody and I'm not going to go to a workshop next week. If you could focus on just one thing, my recommendation would be find a way to define what your values are. And there are many different ways. Again, books, podcasts talk about this, writing, journaling, all great sources of knowledge. Find a way to define your values and then make that connection with the work that you're doing. Like, do my values align with what I'm doing right now? And if not, what can I change? And for my goals, how can I make sure that my goals are aligned with what I value the most? Because one of the top reasons why people come to people like us, coaches, is because they feel like they're stuck. They feel like, oh, I don't really know. Like I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not really happy and excited, and I don't feel like I'm living my purpose. And 9 times out of 10 is because they're doing something that is not aligned with their values. So again, the one thing, like besides all of these wonderful resources that people can connect with, would be to find out what your values are.
And values are a reference system. The beauty of understanding values, they really have this is the North Star, more than one actually, but and those are the things you will always refer to, even in the difficult moments, especially when things get tough, right? So
Yeah,
if one of the values can be integrity, can be respect, then you will even in the worst moment in your life, you will respect whatever the other person or their thoughts, their actions. So there are is really a kind of a way to do not get lost in emotions or impulses that we have in our lives, because it can get messy sometimes. But if we know where the star is, we always know where to look at, and we will always
exactly.
know where our destination is.
Yeah.
That
And I would argue that that's also one of the most important things of self-awareness. Like, yes, a lot of it is knowing about your personality and strengths, etc. But another part of being self-aware is knowing what's important for you, right? And knowing what your North Star is. And they like, I feel like a lot of people think of values as almost as virtues, like things like respect and integrity and do no harm. But values can be anything, really. They can be travel. Like maybe my top number one value right now is to travel. And that's the most important thing for me. And if I'm in a position where I'm not traveling, I'm going to be miserable. Or maybe my number one value is learning right now. And if I'm not learning, what am I doing? They can be anything.
Thank you for specifying. Also, because like leadership, you can Google it up, values, and there are plenty of definitions, and even if
Mm.
any book on leadership, they will tell you what the value is, but it can be slightly different. And I like what you just said because it's really something that is important to you. It can be, as you say, learning, can be traveling, can be playing guitar, it can be anything that makes you feel happy, better, and on track, especially on track, on whatever
Exactly.
you wanna achieve. Let's talk a little bit more about you. And I wonder if you look at yourself as a leader,
Hmm.
because you are a leader. I mean, you even if now you work basically for yourself, but you're a mother. You work for Google for a decade, so you know what leadership is, and that's why we're having this conversation. What is the one thing you're struggling with about leadership? The one thing that you know you're not very good at, and still, having some problems to get better at, if any, of course.
I've I've had to learn to be a good listener because normally I'm a talker and I'm to actually be with somebody. And I think this is an important part of being a good leader to listen to others. And it's not something that has come naturally to me. So that's something that I've definitely have to learn. I think I'm much better at it now. Um, Something that I struggle with at the moment is prioritizing. I get excited about too many things and too many projects and then I start working on something and I'm making progress and something shiny comes up and I'm like, oh, look at that. Let's explore that. That looks fantastic. Um, and and I wish I had the time to explore everything, but we only have 20 hours in a day, 20 hours, 24 hours, not 20 hours.
Well, you
So
need to sleep sometime, at least four
that's
hours.
one thing that I definitely need to make more improvement on.
Listening. Okay, and
Like a young
prioritize.
little kid.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Excited.
You're right, you're right, you're right. And actually I can say that I'm a witness of Mariana's enthusiasm for new
Yeah.
things. Because we know each other now for a year and a half,
A
pretty
few
much. So
years, yeah.
yeah, yeah, a couple of years actually. It was during our coaching training, and then we stay in contact. So yeah, so what is that you're doing to get better? What is that you're trying to apply to be a better listener or to prioritize better?
To be a leader, to be a better listener, it's practice. And there were so many exercises that I did when I was in my time at Google that were great, where we would like sit and you might have done this in your time in the Navy too. Like you have to sit with somebody for a few minutes, listen without interrupting, and then repeating back to them exactly what they said. And and that was hard, like listening to somebody for 2 minutes, no stops, no interrupting, and then being able to not think about, oh, I'm going to answer this and I'm going to answer that. So a lot of practice. And in coaching, it's like a big part of coaching is listening. So that's something that it's just practice, practice, and knowing that it's important.
And podcasting too.
Prioritizing, I wish I had a good answer for you. I like, give me something. If you have a good tool, I'll try it. If anybody listening has a good tool, I'll try it. Because that's been the biggest struggle for me going from corporate to being an entrepreneur. In corporate, like you know what the priorities are. Like you have to prioritize your day, your time, your team. But from a company perspective, like you know what needs to be done. Like especially if you're in sales, like I was in the sales org, like we have quarterly goals. When you're self-employed, you're not accountable to anybody other than yourself. So like looking in 1,000 different directions, it's for somebody like me, it's easy. So I'm still figuring it out, Stefano. I've tried different things,
Yeah, can I
but
give you a very quick
my
advice?
answer, please, I'll take it.
And it's actually from the book, number one book for me that it's really has changed how I see, how I lead, how I behave. That is called the 7 habits for highly effective people.
Yeah,
And one of the habits is putting first things first, right? And first things
mm,
is, first of all, you need to do the work that we actually mentioned earlier, understanding yourself, understanding your values. So what is important for
yeah,
you? And whatever is important for you can also be important for the business that you're doing. So you have 2 categories, right? Pretty much, or you can grade something based on importance. And the other thing is, of course, urgency. So the sweet point is working for non-urgent things, but important things.
yeah,
So whatever is urgent and important, you should avoid that in a way that you should manage your time to make it
yeah,
less urgent. Whatever is not important, either urgent or not urgent, doesn't matter. It doesn't really deserve your time. And you can create a
right,
graph. Literally,
yeah,
it's not just important or important. Of course, it's how important it can be. And there are methods to assess this. This also based on, as I say, what you're doing right now. But if you really put a chart and you track and you can do that, you will understand how and where to invest your time. This is a very
yeah,
quick way to do it. I know there is, I guess, what is called the Eisenhower graph as well. They are very similar, still importance, urgency,
yeah,
but they are very similar on this. I think everything starts with the self-awareness we were talking about. And so we're circling back to
yeah.
what we said earlier. How does it resonate?
Yeah, no, yeah. I've tried a few of those and then they work great for a few days. And then after a week, I'm like, oh, back to something exciting over here for my website.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
that's
we'll talk more about that because I feel like you have a lot of great advice to give me on
of course.
prioritizing.
Okay, so and now we're going to the end of this conversation. So let me ask you the last question. So if some new leader comes to you and asks you, for a good advice and say, "Hi, Mariana, I need some good recommendation. I want to be a successful leader. I want to be a good leader. I want to be a good soil." What is
Right.
the recommendation you will give to this person?
Hmm. I would say going back to that analogy of the soil, get to know not only yourself, but your people, right? So get to know not only all of the ingredients that you have to offer and all the things that you don't have that you'll need maybe a little bit of help with. And then get to know the people, like what kind of plans are you going to have? What do they need? What's that environment that they'll thrive in? And if you choose to work with the Enneagram, like getting to know all the different types, just to have an idea of how different people see the world. And again, it doesn't have to be the Enneagram. Pick a tool, pick something that can give you that different perspective that people have from different points of view.
Nice. Well,
And
thank you.
nourish your own soul, your own soil and soul.
Yeah, invest in yourself. You're absolutely right, and that's
Invest
something
in
that
yourself.
we forget. We are so taken by tasks, by family, work, and we forget about ourselves and how important it is to nourish ourselves and to spend time in discovering more about ourselves and filling those gaps that we find. Or, if there is a weakness, if I'm not good at listening or prioritizing, how can I all the time I put into getting better at this is not wasted time, and actually the ROI can be very high. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for this beautiful conversation. There are a lot of things I'm taking away from your words. First of all, is this spiritual dimension of self-awareness, because we always think see us as a mind and body, but it's more than that, right? There is another level, another layer that we can add, and what you call the URRE window. That's I like that. So I'm gonna research more and take some information so I can use it in coaching as well. So thank you very much for having been with us, Mariana.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun having this conversation with you, Stefano.